Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams one-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez. You're listening to episode 3 of our special series, The Dark Record, where we uncover some of the strangest and most unsettling events history has left behind. Tonight's episode is a little different. I'm recording live with a very special guest, someone I'm truly excited to have on the show. Together, we're going to dig into the strange happenings of the Dancing Plague of 1518. Please join me in welcoming Miss Meghan Cunningham. Meghan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lyle. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, you're very welcome. So, the Dancing Plague. Are you ready to get in on this little weird episode?
So ready.
Yes, perfect. What is the Dancing Plague of 1518?
Right. So, as it sometimes does, it began with one woman. In July 14th, 1518, so the height of summer, a particular woman named Frau Troffea just basically started dancing wildly and uncontrollably through the streets of Strasbourg, which for anyone who's wondering sort of where we're talking about, Strasbourg was part of the Holy Roman Empire, which was mainly composed of Germanic people, but also had some Italian territories, Slavic territories, French territories, if we're trying to superimpose it over a modern map. Strasbourg is now in modern-day France, and we would know it as Alsace. Voltaire observed that the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman, because, of course, it had nothing to do with the original Roman Empire, and unlike the image that they were trying to put forward, it actually lacked religious unity. Which will be an important factor later in this discussion.
Nice.
But yeah, before the whole thing was over, around 400 people had joined her. And by autumn, the whole thing was over just as suddenly as it had begun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just crazy. The numbers are really foggy, and they're definitely up for debate. But there are claims that as many as 100 people may have actually dropped dead as a result of this dancing plague.
Wait, how many people?
As many as 100. So if you think about the fact that 400 were involved.
Like a fourth.
And this is why historians go, those numbers are controversial.
Yeah. Well, that seemed, this is a weird off-the-wall event that happened in 1518, which is, 500 years ago? But I see people just dancing on the street right now, and they're like on something. So what makes us seem that this Frau wasn't on something at the time where she was just dancing, and then all of a sudden people were making fun of her? Next thing you know, they're surrounded by 400 people all dancing. And I wonder what kind of dance styles they were doing, because this was 500 years ago. Were they doing like the waltz or something like that, or like the Macarena? Who knows what they were doing? If only we had like video at the time.
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? I'm glad we don't have any video from the Middle Ages. We wouldn't want to see a lot of the things that happened.
Yeah, I've always wanted there to be like some form of a time travel where we don't physically go there, but we can like watch events on a screen and like just watch what happens. Because that would be terrifying itself. That would be on the dark record by itself, is being able to see that.
So I suppose to address your question, we need to know a little bit first about how dance was perceived in that period.
Okay.
So the period that we're talking about, or that I sort of will be talking about when I'm addressing this, is sort of spans the Middle Ages through sort of the early part of the early modern period. So during that period, dance, from about 1000 on, dance is seen as something that needs to be controlled, because of the potential for spiritual and social immorality that comes along with it. It was seen as something that needed to be done at a specific time and in a specific place. There became places where it was not appropriate to dance. And sort of this is where we see the formalization of different types of dance. So today we think of, you're watching Dancing with the Stars or whatever, and they're doing the foxtrot or the rumba or whatever, like, so these prescribed dances. They had, prescribed dances back then as well. And these done in the correct pattern, in the correct time and place, were acceptable. Any kind of dancing outside that was potentially suspect. So sort of drunken carousing could get you in trouble in a lot of different parts of Europe. Dancing on the table at the bar was very discouraged.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't think she was really doing that type of dancing.
No. Well, so the type of dancing as it was described was pretty much that they were convulsing. They were talking about, people convulsing and twitching. In my head, when I hear the descriptions that they give, I think of Woodstock. And stuff that we would not even blink at today.
Right.
But even at the time, if you think about the parents and grandparents of the people who probably attended Woodstock, they just thought it was horrendous. Why were they not doing the waltz? And
which Woodstock? The one from the 90s or the one from like the 70s?
The original.
Okay.
The original and the best.
I don't know. The one from the 90s was a little off the wall.
Probably, I'm guessing similar. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't make it to either, but yeah.
Yeah, me either. I think I was 10 or 15 when the second one happened. But yeah, that was an event in itself. Right?
But no, unfortunately, I didn't get to attend either. But I hear the first one was the one to be at.
Yeah.
But so from about 1200, religious thinking began to see dancing primarily as a feminine thing, and the inappropriate natures of dancing were associated with women's failings, and particularly their perceived lack of control of sexual appetite. This is specifically a Northern European cultural phenomenon. I should say none of these things were a concern or even on the radar in, say, the Mediterranean regions during this same period. So all of these things are still completely acceptable, for instance, in, say, Italy. Okay. But they were an absolute no-no in, sort of Switzerland, Germany, certainly England. So they were things that had to be controlled and sort of watched out for. Okay. So that's sort of how dancing was perceived in that period. The type of dancing that we're talking about, that Frau Trofea was doing, would most definitely have been considered unorthodox. It was being done in the public square. It was not any sort of organized, scripted dance that we know of. She didn't have a particular partner along with her. It was just wild, frenzied dancing, like she'd had an early insight into Jimi Hendrix or something.
She just had the music in her. I'm assuming that's exactly what it was. But yeah, I mean that just, I mean, it doesn't strike me too strange that somebody would just dance out of nowhere. But what really gets me as strange is that people were dancing along with her, and it turned into, like you said, 400 or so people. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of people that are just all hanging out, dancing with each other. And how many people were actually in these villages? Like that's might be a huge portion of the population.
Yeah, I mean, I probably could find the specific. I don't have that specific information to hand. But I do know that this particular plague, this particular dancing plague, there were more than one. But this particular dancing plague was isolated to Strasbourg,
Hmm.
and it didn't spread outside Strasbourg. Um, Also, we have to bear in mind that this took place over the course of about 6 weeks, which in the scale of dancing plagues is actually relatively isolated and short. Um, and these people didn't just sort of all join her at once. So Frau Trofea actually didn't dance for all that long. She danced for 4 days total.
Only four
Until
days.
only 4 days. She started it off, she danced for 4 days. Local officials took her up the side of the local mountain where there was a shrine to Saint Vitus, um, who was seen as one of the patron saints of manic dancing. A Catholic mass was performed and she was cured.
Hmm.
But by then it was kind of too late because others had already started taking her place. I believe it started with 5 and then just kept increasing over the weeks. And a lot of the things that physicians, I use that term very loosely, physicians tried to
Plague doctors.
prescribe as medicine, and I use that term even more loosely, actually made the situation worse.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for details.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did they make it worse?
So basically, at the time, there were a bunch of different factors that went into why this possibly happened, but our records at the time primarily come from the local chronicles, which are super cut and dry, straightforward. X happened on such and such a day, and as a result, Y happened.
Hmm.
They also come from a man named Paracelsus, who was a physician, an alchemist, extremely misogynistic. He initially suggested that Frau Trofea did it just to annoy her husband, which is totally on brand for him. If you read his writings, he really does have some rather disparaging things to say about women.
Yeah.
Just basically, they were an annoyance to society.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but she left no records of her life or reasons why she was doing it. So he suggested that. He also suggested, and other physicians suggested, that some of the main causes might have been too much blood, which could cause something called laughing veins, which produced kind of a ticklish feeling that covered your body and went all the way up to your head and clouded your judgment, and made you have sort of extreme motions. And then bad blood that had to be that might be burned or bitter or imbalanced.
Hmm.
These are things that they believed could happen to blood. Then the last sort of theory that medical people had at the time was that it might be just generally overheated blood. So it wasn't quite to the level of being burned, but it was on its way. It was sort of scorched a little bit.
Yeah.
The first two, the prescribed treatment for it was actually more dancing to
Yeah.
just basically get the silly out of your system.
Hmm.
And the idea was that the rising heat in your body from dancing would burn off either the excess blood or the bad blood, and then it would no longer be in your system and it wouldn't be a problem. Because obviously the other solution to that would be bloodletting, but it's impossible to try bloodletting on someone who's constantly in motion. It's just not a good idea. The third option, the overheated blood, is the only one that actually requires you to stop dancing to cool down. So they tried to treat the first two because 2 of the 3 required more dancing. They actually hired in professional musicians, built a new dance hall, tried to encourage locals to partner with these people that were caught up in the dance, which just ended badly. Some of these people who were encouraged to join in actually became part of the frenzy and the dance, and
Yeah.
then couldn't stop. Then they tried to ban all music and ban all dancing. They basically put the city of Strasbourg into lockdown and demanded that families take charge of their afflicted relatives and basically make them stay in the house, thinking that if it was a sort of a social movement or a sort of a mass hysteria movement, it might
Mhm.
cause them to stop if you separated them.
Yeah.
That didn't work. They just ended up with loads of letters of complaint, which have come down to us from family members saying they're dancing around the whole house, wrecking the whole house. We don't want them in here anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so those were some of the crazy things that they tried that just did not work at all.
Yeah. Well, there's also some theories that it might have been demonic possession that was doing it. Physicians pointed that
So of
it could have been
course,
the overheated
when
blood.
right, well, whenever we think back to sort of the Middle Ages or the early modern period, we do think of these ideas that demonic possession was possibly a factor. But if we look at this event, which again was not an isolated event,
Right.
so it was one of a few different dancing plagues that we know of. The general theme that tends to go along with them is that it's actually a punishment from God rather than anything to do with the devil,
Mm-hmm.
for the local population or the leaders of the local population's moral iniquities or failings. So just to give a couple examples, in 1015, there's a example of a dancing plague, which, by the way, this one is generally considered a myth, like something that was put into saint stories
Mm-hmm.
to teach a lesson, but that isn't necessarily fact. But in this particular myth, it talks about basically how there was a dancing plague in the area to protest the local priest's moral iniquities. He was a very bad priest who had concubines, etc. He attempted to put a stop to it by basically cursing these people when they wouldn't come into mass. But of course, that didn't work. So it was resolved when a bishop was brought in to absolve the dancers and set everything right, and then life resumed as normal. As for actual historical events, they're pretty similar in theme. So in 1274 and 1374, social comments, again in the local chronicles, blame the incidents on the failings of the local clergy. So in 1374, those who were sort of observing the dance rather than involved in it specifically blame it on the local clergy baptizing infants correctly, having concubines, and the sort of buzz around town seems to be that the suggestion or the fix is to basically kill these clergy members and take all their goods.
Oh man.
So that didn't happen. But yeah, it was way more widespread too. So the 1373 dancing plague took place all along the Rhine River Valley, where the outbreak essentially followed the river from town to town for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at a very small, very localized one, when we're looking at this particular plague that we're talking about today. There were others that were longer, and the solution in every case ends up being spiritual. So in the case of the 1374 plague, exorcisms and masses were performed, and the chronicles record that God intervened and the priests weren't killed and society went back to normal. So it's all kind of about maintaining the status quo and keeping the level of normal. And when, man-made methods fail, people seem to rely on their spiritual methods, which seem to work.
Right.
So, whatever the cause, the solution generally seems to be spiritual. So add to that, in every single one of these cases, there were issues with food supply and shortage in the local areas, include up to the level of famine. And there was social unrest, and there were buzzings of religious reform, again, that were common in all of these areas during each of these events. As part of that, sort of the wealthy and powerful of the area and also the clergy were named in the chronicles by observers, not participants, as potential sources for the sin that had brought this curse down upon the people, which was a very common medieval and early modern idea that your leader, if they were a sinful person, could cause your entire country or your entire area to be judged by God. The idea being if you got rid of them, you would then be forgiven.
Yeah, the stuff that they thought of back in the olden days.
Yeah.
I also see that it could have been something called ergot poisoning. That it could have been something like that, or mass hysteria is probably another one that's well documented, well thought of.
Yeah, so I mean, I have heard the ergot theory. That's often a theory that you see cited too with things like the Salem witchcraft trials. The level of ergot that you would have to consume to produce hallucinations like this is pretty immense. And it also has other side effects that would have been much more obvious in terms of discoloration of fingers and toes and things like that, which are not reported in either case. So you would assume that if someone had discolored parts of their body, it would have been noted. Like if we hold it up next to, for instance, records from the various bubonic plagues and things like that, and pneumonic plagues, where they describe symptoms in pretty good detail. It would be odd that they would have overlooked something like that in these cases.
Well, something like this was pretty common. I mean, that ergot is a fungus that could be, it could be in grains, in rye, things like that. So there's a good chance that it could have it could have gotten into the food supply, and it could have caused something like this, because ergot poisoning is a form of basically LSD. So you could have had them. Who knows how long? If Frau had a batch of grains that was laced in it, and they've just been eating it over time, so it could have built up in the system, and then all of a sudden, here we go, dancing.
Possibly. I think it would be an unlikely scenario to have spanned all of those different time periods and all of those different places, given all the other common factors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, who knows?
So for instance, with ergot, like doses as low as I think 2 to 10 grams can be lethal. And again, we didn't have 400 people dropping dead, because they all would have had the same grain source too. We have to remember that this was not an era of people necessarily having their own mill, and everyone would have had their grain, which was potentially communal. Even if it was their own that they grew, they would have brought it to the same mill, so contamination would have absolutely been a factor. I know it certainly wasn't the majority of the populations that I'm aware of in any of these places that succumbed to these dancing plagues. And of course, everyone was eating the same bread, including those people who were not affected.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows what could have caused this? It was just some off-the-wall, weird event that took place, and people just started doing the hustle right in the middle of the town square.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is the thing. Literally to this day, we don't know, and we will probably never know conclusively what caused it. We just know that it happened. We know what they tried that didn't work, In the end, they brought all of the remaining sufferers up to this shrine on the mountain, to the shrine of Mount Vitus, and performed different rituals and a mass and things like that. And it just disappeared. These people were completely cured, and it went away. So again, harkening back to the earlier episodes, for whatever reason, the town decided after all these medical methods, again in huge inverted commas, medical methods had failed, they were going to revert to a spiritual method. And for whatever reason, for them, it seemed to do the trick. Yeah, very strange.
Yeah. Do you think there was anybody like in the crowd who wanted to show off a lot of their dance moves, so they kind of just went for it?
It certainly could be, I guess, if you have the protection of a crowd during a period when such dancing is frowned on. It would certainly be a good cover.
I could just imagine somebody being out there being like, wow, look at all these people dancing. Now I can finally show off my moves. And then off they go. And then next thing you know, they're on the floor with bleeding feet.
Right, exactly. And this is the other kind of funny thing. So one of the theories that's been posited is that it was a social demonstration. So, like, was Frau Trophea simply someone without a voice in her society expressing herself in a way that was socially shocking as like a protest, which we see all the time? And did that protest then sort of move beyond what she originally intended and get a little bit out of hand? But then who rationally would dance themselves to the point of bleeding feet and injured limbs and putting up with all these medical treatments that they were trying on them, and then people literally died? So yeah, they just danced themselves to death, then ended up having sort of heat stroke and heart attacks and these things that they theorized that they just dropped dead from as a result of this dancing. So if it was a social protest movement, why would they consider carrying on to the point of dancing themselves literally into injury, death, or dubious medical treatment? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for details.
Well, let's move on to more of the how do we know about this event that took place? Because I know we have illustrations and like wood cutouts and drawings of what took place. What other? How do we know that this plague even took place 500 years ago?
Literally, our only sources for this, again, are the writings of Paracelsus and also the local chronicles, which again were there to cover all kinds of different events. This just happens to be one of the events that are recorded in it. Mm-hmm. They do record the sort of general societal whisperings of people observing the plague as it was happening. There are no recorded records at all that I'm aware of that record the thoughts of anybody actually involved or afflicted by this plague. For instance, Frau Trophea, we have no idea why she did it. She only did it for 4 days and then was cured. Why did nobody think to say, hey, why'd you do that? Yeah. Or if they did, why did nobody record whatever her reply might have been? That's sort of a mystery that we don't really know about. But yeah, unfortunately, we just have these very bland, very patchy X happened, Y happened, and because of this we tried this. It didn't work.
Right. I mean, maybe at the time it wasn't as weird as we perceive it now. Maybe they just thought it was something cool that happened. And here we are 500 years later going, wow, that was strange. And at the time, they're like, wow, it was just something we did. We needed to pass time.
I don't know. I think they definitely thought it was very out of the ordinary, and I think it was very distressing to the people of Strasbourg as a society. Social order was very important during this period, from knowing your place based on your social standing to your marital status. Like, the amount of rules that were involved in how people moved within society were quite strict and quite well known. It was just part of the fabric of life. And for something like this to happen, it would have been extremely shocking and extremely out of the ordinary for people to have observed. And I think particularly for people in power, I think they were probably a little bit nervous as well, which I think is why they kind of took the medical angle to start with, in spite of how past cases would have been resolved. Because if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, in the sense that you're being punished, then that lays the blame on the people in charge, meaning the politicians, the local government, the local clergy. Whereas if you say, oh, well, it's a medical phenomenon, then it's nobody's fault. It's just something that needs to be treated, and we can carry on doing things the way we've always done them, business as usual.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get the sense from the records that we have that possibly because of a mission at the start, people in power at the very least were concerned and rattled by it, trying to come up with some kind of medical cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what else can we say about this strange event that, well, I mean, I keep calling it strange, but honestly, I don't find it that strange. I really don't. People were just out there dancing, having a good time. Then it just turned into in my opinion, it was more or less a mass hysteria that did it. People didn't have much to do back then. Well, actually, people had a lot to do. The poor people at least did. They had to go to work. They had to do this. They had to do that. They needed something to do to kind of, make their lives a little bit more meaningful. They saw somebody dancing out there and they said, why not? Let me go at it. And then they went out there, started mosh pitting with everybody else. And then
and they got really into it.
Yes, I'm pretty sure some of them really did. Like, I really wish there was more records of like people that actually took part in it, and not people that were just watching them. Because I mean, I don't know. It's just just something that happened, really.
Yeah, and even from the perspective of the records we do have in terms of observations of people sort of looking in from the outside, watching what was happening, it's not like they were direct quotes. It's not like you'd be like, oh yeah, the New York Times or whatever quoted such and such as saying, I saw them do this. It was just sort of a general feeling that was described, right, without any individual having allegedly said it. But like, even just the fact that there are multiple saints, so Saint Vitus, who was kind of the local saint in this case that helped cure it. He was also seen as the patron saint of epilepsy. But he's just one. So they also sometimes called on John the Baptist. So in the plague of the 1370s, the dancing plague, it was John the Baptist that they called on. Saint Mary Magdalene was a saint that was seen to be associated with manic dancing, because in the Middle Ages especially, they saw her as a saint particularly associated with divine punishment and penance. So it just goes to show there was more than one saint. There were several actually who had sort of domain over helping people who were uncontrollably dancing. Give you some kind of idea of how people thought about it, and also how known it was as a possible ailment, I guess, in this period.
Well, I think I think that's actually going to do it for us on this topic, because I think we covered everything pretty well.
There's one more thing I'd like to say, though. Last thing, I promise. So this particular plague was very unique in terms of dancing plagues, because Paracelsus observed it wasn't just grown men and women who were involved. Children got involved as well. So it spanned all the age ranges, men and women, children. So it was unique in that sense. So it was literally people from every walk of society just getting out there and dancing to the point where they were completely lights are on, but nobody's home. They couldn't be stopped. They couldn't be communicated with.
Yeah, that seems to be the strangest part about it, is that people probably went out there and enjoyed the dancing, but then they realized, wow, I can't stop. And I'm telling myself to stop, but yet I am continuously moving. And I don't know, who knows how much water these people drank, because they were probably sweating up a storm. I mean, can you imagine, people just going to the bathroom just right there? And they just can't, that's just things you don't think about, is when you're lights, like you said, lights on, no one's home. I mean, your body still does what it does, regardless of if you're paying attention or not. It's got to do it. And then there we go. Huge mess. I'm glad I don't live in those times.
The smell.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That with the smell, I think that's gonna be it.
That just really brought the whole period home. It's like, just imagine the smell.
Yes, because people didn't shower regularly back then. These people there was no deodorant, wasn't really a thing. Soap, I guess soap has been around for a long time, but there was probably no Dove soap that smelled good. It was probably just a brick of rye.
Yeah, they didn't have Bath and Body Works.
Yeah. All right, so that is going to do it for our discussion on the dancing plague of 1518. Meghan, thank you so much for coming on the show with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I was very excited to come on. Big fan.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it. So, I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of The Dark Record. I think tomorrow, let me look at my notes, because when you do so many of these, you just do not remember, can't keep it all in your head, but it's the Smurl family haunting is tomorrow. So, be on the lookout for that, guys. All right, I'll see you later. Have a good day.
Save big during Labor Day at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, buy more to get up to an additional 20% off. Shop even more savings with 3 Stay Green 1 cubic foot vegetable and flower garden soil bags for $10. This Labor Day, take care of your home for less at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.